What if I told you that the single strangest, most mind-bending science fiction film of the 1980s was about an alien that fed on human endorphins during orgasm? It's true. Forget the polished chrome of Terminator 2. The real 1980s were a gloriously weird decade defined by B-movies that dared to be smarter, more bizarre, and often more philosophical than their blockbuster counterparts. We're counting down 10 absolute gems, films that slipped under the radar but provided us with psychic devolution, extraterrestrial gunfights on the moons of Jupiter, and the eternal dream of turning your video game skills into reality. If you thought you knew the 80s, prepare for a journey through the most inventive, low-budget, and utterly unforgettable cinematic oddities. If you believe the weird films were the best films, hit that subscribe button now. We promise you won't look away. 1. Altered States, the acid trip to creation. Can you name what goes well with psychological sci-fi? Body horror. Altered States, directed by Ken Russell, is not a movie. It is an existential trip through the mind of pseudo-intellectual scientist Edward Jessup. Jessup specializes in studying higher states of consciousness and pushes his body's limits with sensory deprivation tanks. But the film truly begins when he travels to Mexico to ingest a unique mix of sacred mushrooms. What follows is a mesmerizing, hallucinatory rampage of biological devolution. Jessup regresses into a caveman and eventually a non-corporeal ball of energy. The film successfully takes audiences on a psychedelic ride, exploring how far a scientist will go for the sake of experimentation. Even if the result leads to him not being human anymore, it appeals entirely to the absurdist, proving that the greatest adventure can happen inside your own skull. 2. Death Watch, 1980. The reality TV nightmare. Here is a film that was terrifyingly ahead of its time. Death Watch, directed by Bertrand Tavernier, is set in a future where death by illness is a rarity. The story follows Catherine, a woman diagnosed with a terminal illness who becomes a sudden celebrity. NTV, a powerful media company, asks for permission to film her dying days for a reality television series. The horror is realized through Roddy, a veteran cameraman for NTV who has a surgically implanted camera behind his eyes that relays the footage to the network. Catherine is hunted, exploited, and ultimately driven to suicide to escape the vortex of dirty money and greedy entertainment. The film brilliantly points out the terrifying possibility of cameras permeating every area of our lives, where the absence of death does not mean paradise, but instead boredom and a desperate need for exploitation. Which movie's premise was the most dangerous to society? Losing your humanity to experimentation, altered states, or losing your privacy to media exploitation? Death Watch. Share your thoughts below. 3. Liquid Sky, 1982, The Endorphin Predators. This film is a prime example of rough-edged, absurd 80s satire that remains truly unique. Liquid Sky follows Margaret, a supermodel navigating the neon cocaine-fueled club scene of 1980s Manhattan. The insanity begins with tiny aliens who arrive on Earth, not in search of water or gold, but heroin. They soon discover a far more potent food source, the endorphins released during a human climax. The catch is that the unfortunate soul is killed instantly. Margaret, an androgynous bisexual, assumes this is her newly gained deadly power as her lovers fall dead one after the other. The production design perfectly matched the eccentric, barely digestible storyline. It intentionally depicted the uncomfortable truths of drug use and ill-intentioned sex, creating a niche fan base who fiercely defend this campy piece of art. It's radical, raw, and remains one of the weirdest cinematic statements on addiction and beauty ever made. 4. Outland, 1981, High Noon on Io. Outland is a film that asks the question, what if you set High Noon 300 million miles away from Earth? Sean Connery stars as Federal Marshal William O'Neill, stationed at a titanium mining outpost on Jupiter's moon, Io. After a series of gruesome deaths, O'Neill discovers the workers are on an illegally traded amphetamine steroid drug. The film shines by focusing not on alien hostilities, but on the sleaziness of our own kind. O'Neill is the ideal, honorable police marshal who stands by what is right in a setting that encourages corruption and moral decay. The film didn't skimp on the gore, showing miners exploding in space after suffering psychotic breaks. It's a working-class sci-fi thriller set in an industrial environment. The true woe of the blue collar, just on a different celestial body. Which sci-fi scenario is more dangerous? Fighting an alien invasion, or fighting the sleaziness of our own species on a moon 300 million miles away? 5. Enemy Mine, 1985, The Unexpected Ally. Enemy Mine is an emotional journey that tackles the absurdity of war. The story is set in the late 21st century, where Earth is at war against the reptilian alien species known as the Drax. The human protagonist, Willis E. Davidge, and a Drax named Jeriba Shigan confront each other in a vicious aerial battle that spirals out of control, leaving them stranded on a deadly volcanic planet. The enemies, who are at each other's throats, are forced to cooperate for the sole purpose of survival. The emotional weight is immense when the pregnant Drax dies during childbirth, and Davidge fights to ensure the child of his former nemesis is safely returned to its homeworld. It is a bittersweet story of a blossoming friendship that forced both characters and the audience to look past indoctrination and ponder the meaning of empathy. 6. Innerspace, 1987, miniaturization mayhem. Here is a much-needed break from the tragic and violent sci-fi. Innerspace, directed by Joe Dante, is a hilarious sci-fi comedy that follows the absurd adventures of a miniaturization experiment. Lieutenant Tuck Pendleton, a disgraced Navy pilot, is miniaturized and meant to be injected into a rabbit. But the lab is attacked, and Tuck is accidentally injected into a hypochondriac grocery clerk named Jack Putter. The thrilling misadventures that follow won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. Tuck watches everything unfold through a camera attached to Jack's optic nerve, speaks through an inner ear device, and even kills his miniaturized enemy by dropping him in Jack's stomach acid. It's a simple, charming story about a man who was shrunk to a microscopic size and his funny adventures living inside another man. 7. The Hidden, 1987, the body-jumping thrill killer. The Hidden is a tightly written thriller that fused a buddy cop concept with classic sci-fi horror. The movie starts with a blood-soaked bank robbery at the hands of an innocent-looking man. The protagonist, a cop, soon realizes he is pursuing an alien thrill killer that violently transfers from host to host. The alien doesn't wish to wipe out humanity. It kills solely for its fun and excitement. It presents a plausible chance of extraterrestrial invasion, with the possibility of a thrill-seeking alien infiltrating human governments. The film is packed with shocking twists and steadily building anticipatory tension, proving that a B-movie concept can be elevated by sharp writing and a relentless pace. 8. Starman, 1984, Carpenter's romantic turn. This film is a fascinating entry because it was directed by John Carpenter, whose most notable works include films such as The Thing. Starman is a surprisingly heartwarming, albeit slightly strange, sci-fi romance drama. The story begins with a lost alien, a luminescent ball of energy, who uses a strand of hair from the deceased husband of Jenny Hayden to transform into his clone. The alien, Starman, and the widowed Jenny slowly fall in love throughout the movie. Carpenter drummed up a film that perfectly blended the best aspects of a sci-fi classic and romance. Starman never had malicious intent. He was shown to be an endearing alien who had a lot to learn on this foreign planet. It was critically acclaimed for warping the stereotypical gender roles of that decade, relying heavily on the slow-burn chemistry of the two protagonists. 9. The Last Starfighter, 1984, every gamer's dream. The iconic 1984 space opera, directed by Nick Castle, was heavily inspired by the legendary franchises of Star Wars and Tron. Alex Rogan, a trailer park teen, escapes the bleakness of his future by immersing himself in a popular arcade video game known as Starfighter. Alex quickly becomes the highest-scoring player, drawing the attention of the game's creator, Centauri. Centauri turns out to be an alien who essentially abducts Alex, revealing that Starfighter was a representation of an actual ongoing space battle. Alex is made a prime fighter pilot for the Ryland League, proving himself to be the savior of the planet Rios. It's every gamer's dream come true. A messy, heartwarming coming-of-age film where the protagonist actualizes himself in a fantastical world. 10. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984, pure cult. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai is considered a preservation of the essence of the 80s. And the story follows Buckaroo Banzai, physicist, neurosurgeon, and rock star, and his gang of misfits who perfected a device that allowed objects to pass clean through other solid matter, granting access to an eighth otherworldly dimension. The open portal allows a violent race of aliens to swarm Earth. Buckaroo and his gang were the heroes who saved humanity, with a combination of rad rock and roll music and physics. The film's multi-dimensional adventure, unconventional dialogue, and wholesome nature quickly earned it cult classic status, proving that sometimes all you need is an audacious, creative vision. There you have it. 10 absolutely illogical, spectacularly flawed, but profoundly memorable sci-fi films of the 1980s. These were the true cinematic adventurers, proving that even a limited budget couldn't kill genuine, weird creativity. They may have been ignored at the box office, but they live forever in the VHS afterlife. Which movie do you think was the biggest accident of genius? The psychological devolution of altered states, or the endorphin-hunting aliens of liquid sky? Hit that like button, share this video with a fellow 80s survivor, and subscribe for more deep dives into the weirdest side of cinema.